And now we turn to the panel discussion, Green Chemistry, Climate Change and the Goal of Net Zero Emissions. And here are our panelists. Fernando Gomez, Head of Chemical Industry Program at the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Fernando. Indy Burke, Dean at the Yale School of the Environment. Welcome. And Anja Verena Mudring, Professor, Head of Physical Materials Chemistry at the Stockholm University. Welcome, Anja. And of course, our laureate, Paul and Estas. Welcome you as well. Thank you all for participating. Paul, let's start here a little bit in the studio. I know that some people believe that green chemistry should be all about minimizing the use of chemicals. What is your message to them?
Well, from the beginning, green chemistry has never been about what you have to reduce, what you have to eliminate, what you have to ban, what you have to phase out. It's always been about what you can design, invent, and innovate. It's always been about creativity, about how you get that environmental performance and that functional performance both at the same time.
Great, so it's about creativity and actually getting the right chemicals there. Right?
Exactly.
And Fernando, if I turn to you, at the World Economic Forum, you're heading up the chemical industry program, and the chemical industry has been criticized over the years for toxic emissions. And how is the industry in general acting today? I mean, for example, issues such as plastic pollution and the release of toxic substances.
Yeah, Nicholas, lots of activity. And actually, those two cases are a bit different. Plastic pollution is probably a bit more of a systemic failure, while an issue like a release is definitely the materialization of a risk. Now, on the latter one, what we see is, obviously, these two are managed differently. So on the latter one, what we see is lots of practices, improvements within companies and basically anybody who handles substances. On the former, on the plastics pollution issue, much more systemic with action much more distributed. It's not a single actor. And that also requires innovation programs that are just as distributed. Things that need to happen in elementary school classrooms, at the regulator, in the industry, and of course at the level of consumers like you and me.
Excellent. Thank you, Fernando. Anja, I'm turning to you now. Fernando touched upon this need of the development of new materials, and you are working in the development of green chemistry applications, such as for new materials. What do you think we will see in practical use in the coming years?
I believe what is important, just as Fernando mentioned, we are all consumers, and what we will be seeing and are seeing right now is that increasingly people like you and me as consumers want to align their personal conviction and lifestyle with the product choice and consumption. And that is going towards a more sustainable way of life. Thus, I think this is what we see, and that's where we all want to contribute and with our research.
Yeah. Thank you, Anja. And Indy, can you maybe build a little bit upon this? We know that many companies today are deeply involved in reducing their own footprint of CO2 and becoming more environmentally sustainable. What can academia contribute with that companies are not already doing?
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. It's a great one. And I think that academia can be a trusted source of information, and it's crucial to have a place to go to answer questions about the science. So, for instance, where are the biggest potential carbon sinks biologically, socially, and technologically and geologically? And then what are the economic costs? What are the life cycle analyses? And universities can provide this kind of information without being in the business of, for instance, selling carbon credits. We can identify where the best potential solutions lie and then conduct the kinds of research on where the policy incentives could lie to get companies more engaged in reaching carbon neutrality.
Thanks, Indy. It seems clear that we need actually to tackle all these issues in all fronts in order to raise to the challenge here of sustainability. And Paul, coming back to you again, I can't help to think about the example that we saw earlier on here in the film, actually using carbon dioxide and shifting it over into a fuel for air transport. And let's face it, it's still very expensive to transform CO2 into useful material, isn't it? And let me put it like this. Do you think it will be possible to do this cost efficiently at scale within 5-10 years?
You know, I think that there's been something very close to a technological miracle that's happened in recent years.
Okay.
Something that we've known for millennia, that carbon dioxide is not reactive and can't be transformed. Well, what we've shown, green chemists around the world have shown that no, you can transform something that has been one of our greatest problems, one of our greatest wastes, into a feedstock. One of our feedstocks with the highest potential to make all kinds of things, not just fuels, but building materials and so many other things. So that, I'll say, almost technological miracle is something that I have no doubt that we will be able to implement that in different ways over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's really inspiring to hear. Fernando, turning to you then, the greatest waste turned into the greatest feedstock. What is your view there? What do you think is the industrial perspective? Will you agree with Paul? Start with.
I can only agree with Paul there, Nicholas. I think I've always said that we have to be optimists within the boundaries of thermodynamics and kinetics and physical chemistry. And I think this is a perfect opportunity. CO2 into polymer, CO2 in building blocks. We're seeing it now, and I share that view. Over the next half a decade, 1 decade, we're going to see volumes and really the scale up of some of those exciting innovations that we see. Now, I mentioned before that without the other elements, the right policy frameworks, the innovation on the financing side, the very creative integration into chains, science and technology innovation is the sound of one hand clapping. And I think this is the moment for all of us to come together and see this as a real systemic advancement once again. So I'm with Paul, bullish about it, and I think we have a great opportunity there to turn CO2 into a lot more valuable things.
And to do it by making it into commercial products, right? So it's obvious that if we are to succeed, the solution developed needs to be a commercial success, if nothing else. Anja, is green chemistry more expensive than traditional chemistry?
No, in contrast, I believe that green chemistry actually is more economic in the long run compared to traditional chemistry. Because what we're learning now with the tools of green chemistry is really that we have an inspiring toolbox as chemists for chemical transformations, a way to rethink traditional chemistry and make it more efficient and economic. Just think of we're turning waste into valuable chemicals. We're looking at production processes that create less waste. So this is more economic. Also looking at the energy efficiency. We're living in an energy crisis. Just considering this shows that green chemistry, in fact, can be an economic driver and make processes more economic.
That's very interesting, Anja. So let me do a follow-up question on that. If we are widening things out a little bit here, do you think that innovation in green chemistry then and new materials can be a significant contributor in achieving the net zero emissions of the world?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's very critical, and you see that with Paul has brought people around the globe together, and we are all rethinking, both in academia, in industry, we're collaborating, and we have one common goal, and that is a sustainable society. And in this, we want to contribute.
And Indy, if we talk about contributors, some people say that scientists should do science and not politics. What do you think is the role of universities for real? What role should the universities play in driving the issue of sustainability?
Well, I think universities are places where we can conduct solutions-focused scholarship. And some of that scholarship includes policy. These problems that we face today are very complex scientifically, with respect to environmental health and with respect to justice. And we need creative scholars to work on policy solutions and then to analyze the potential outcomes of those policies for what the unintended consequences could be. The other role is that scholars like Paul, who study policy and science and how they work together, can engage in public service, as Paul has for the U.S. government and other scholars here at Yale do. And then finally, we can be neutral conveners for the discussions and the debates about politics. We serve a really special role in that way as well.
Absolutely, I agree. Fernando, then, you work closely with major companies worldwide and also with many other stakeholders through the World Economic Forum platform. And we know now we will need much more energy, and the demand for energy and materials will increase as we go forward. Are we going to be able to make this work, you think? A rather short answer, please.
I think we'll make it work. I think we need to do three things. I think we need to rebalance a bit our demand patterns, in many cases, performance expectations. That's one. We need to change every linear to circular path as possible as we interconvert carbon forms. And above all, we need to think much more comprehensively about the carbon economy, a way in which we see the energy life of carbon, the materials life of carbon, and the biological life of carbon in a single place. I think that's a super opportunity to optimize the entire system.
Excellent. Turning to Paul then. Do you agree? Can we make this work?
There is no doubt in my mind. Green chemistry has shown what's possible. And I think we can because it's possible. And we will because we must.
That's great. Thank you very much. That has to be the final comment of this discussion. Thank you so much, dear panelists, for being with us here at the Volvo Environment Prize Award ceremony in Gothenburg, Sweden. Thank you.